Hi guys, today I'm going to show you how to make that much awaited hooded scarf, and we're going to be using I Love This yarn, and this is a skein that is 7 ounces or 355 yards, and it is called Just Brown. Okay, and I'm also going to be utilizing this color here. It is called Toasted Almond. And we're also going to be utilizing the Showstopper yarn, which is the eyelash yarn with a skein of 5 ounces or 180 yards. And this one is in the color Ivory. Okay, so let's decide which color we're going to start with. I believe that I'm going to start with this Toasted Almond, and I like to work with the center pull here. Sorry about that. And I'm going to be using a 6.5 millimeter hook, okay? So we're going to start by making a magic circle. And we're going to chain 3. Okay. Let's pull a little bit more of that yarn. And you should have magic circle with a chain 3 there. Yarn over and go into your magic circle, do a double crochet, and yarn over and go back in there and do another double crochet. Okay, so we're going to start with our hood, and that's going to require us to make a granny square. So we're going to need 4 granny clusters and 4 chain spaces. So I'm going to chain 2, and I'm going to do another granny cluster. 3, chain 2, pull some more of this yarn. Okay, so we have 2 clusters and 2 chain sets there. So we're gonna pull this a little bit so we don't lose our circle, and we're going to do another cluster. 1, 2, and 3, and we'll chain 2 again, and our last cluster will go right here with 3 double crochets. 1, 2, and 3, and we'll chain 2, and we'll pull our circle shut here, pull it tight, and we're going to slip stitch to that 3rd chain there. All right, and you now have the beginning of your granny square. So you should have 1, 2, 3, 4 clusters with 1, 2, 3, 4 chain spaces. Okay, we're going to be alternating yarn, so I'm going to need my scissors and I'm going to cut this yarn. So give me a second. Okay, I'm going to be switching yarn, so I'm going to go back, and instead of pulling that yarn through and finishing that slip stitch, I'm just going to insert my hook, but I'm not going to pull the beige. Instead, I'm going to cut this here, and we're going to go with our next color, which will be this brown. I'm going to pull quite a bit of it, and then I'm going to bring this brown through here and slip stitch close. So now I will have this brown tail as well as the tail we cut from the almond color. And I'm going to do a quick little knot here to keep that in place. I've actually lost my stitch here, so let me go back, insert my hook. Let's do that again. gonna pull this yarn, we're gonna insert our hook there, pull the brown through and pull it through, and just go ahead and chain 3 to kind of hold that yarn in place so we don't lose her again. And then go to the back and take those 2 tails and do a quick little knot there. Not too tight, not too loose. That's good. All right, we'll hold that in place. Now, the chain is here and our space is back here, so we're gonna leave that and finish it at the end of the round. For now, we're gonna move into this space with an increase. We're gonna do an increase here, increase, increase, increase. And with an increase, we're going to do a granny cluster. So that means 3 double crochets. That's 3. We're gonna chain 2 and do another cluster right into that same space. And that's our increase. I'm gonna do that in the other spaces and I'll see you at the end. Okay, so I'm at the end of my row, and for my last increase, I did 1 granny cluster, chain 2, and I only did 2 double crochets because I have this chain already from the beginning that's going to count as my 3rd double crochet. So in order to keep it together here, I'm just going to slip stitch to the top of that chain and stitch through both, and there is your next row. Okay, so now we're going to go into our 3rd color, which is the beautiful eyelash. Let's see if we can center pull here. All right, so we failed at pulling the center and this whole thing just came out, so bear with me here. And remember that we're gonna attach the next yarn, so I'm gonna undo this. If you were not switching colors, then that's how you would finish it. But because I am switching colors, I'm just going to insert my hook back in here and bring this eyelash yarn right through there and through the other loop. And I'm going to go ahead and chain 1, 2, 3, and turn my work, and then I'm going to go ahead and cut this brown that I was working with, leave a little tail, and I'm going to tie it off to the other brown from the beginning and make a knot. We'll worry about those tails later. Okay. And I don't like how that looked, so I'm gonna do that again. Okay, hold on. Oh, yeah, that's because we tied to the brown, not the beige. Sorry about that. Okay, so I'm supposed to tie it to this with this that I just cut. So the one you just cut with the new yarn you're attaching this one. This way they stay secure, and then we don't have this big white gap here. See, when you pull it, there, doesn't do that anymore. Okay, or you could attach the yarn however your preferred method is. All right, so back to our chain 3 here, and because our space is in front of our chain, we're going to go ahead and do a granny cluster right in there. So for this row 3, you are now going to have increases, 4 increases or 1 increase in each corner, but also a regular cluster in between those increases. Okay, if you're familiar with granny squares, then this will make sense to you. So into this corner, I'm going to do a granny cluster with a chain of 2 and another granny cluster. Okay, All right, and then we'll go into the next space here that is between the corners, and in here it's just going to be a cluster. And you can alternate your yarn rows in whatever color you want. Maybe you want to do 2 of each color. I like how one looks, even though it's going to give me more tails to weave in later, but I think it looks beautiful that way. So it's really up to you. It could all be one color as well, but the showstopper here is the beautiful eyelash yarn. So there's my corner, and then I'm going to do my regular cluster here, and I'm going to keep doing that, and I'll see you at the end of this round, okay? I'm at the last corner here, and I'm just going to do my increase, and I just wanted to share with you guys that this yarn, someone asked me if it was hard to work with this eyelash yarn, and it is absolutely not hard to work with. The fuzzies do not bother me at all, especially if you use a bigger hook. I'm using, like I said, a 6.5 millimeter hook, and while using this beautiful furls, the yarn just glides right over my hook and makes the whole crocheting experience a lot more pleasant. Okay, so there it is. That is the last stitch there. I'm going to slip stitch to the top of this chain. Okay, and I'm going to go ahead and cut my yarn. Okay, and just for the sake of this tutorial, I'm going to chain 1 just to kind of stop here and talk about it. But if I was going to continue, I would not chain 1. I would just attach the next color. So at this point, this is going to be the sequence of our yarn. She looks beautiful. I love these colors together. And so if obviously we're going to continue making the granny square bigger and bigger, as big as you need to kind of fit the side of your head. So remember, you're going to have 2 panels that cover your head, and they're going to come together in the top and in the back part to kind of form a hood over your head. So I will come back at the end of this video to show you how many rows I did and how many times I alternated my yarn. So for the next row, you're going to go back to your beige, and then the brown, and then the eyelash yarn again. So continue doing that, and I will show you in the next slide, I will show you how many total rows I did, and then we'll work on the next part, okay? All right, guys, I am back, and I have completed my granny square, and I did a total of 9 rows. Let me show you. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and 9. Now, when you get ready to create your granny square, think about which colors you may want to start with first. I did not want to end in the eyelash yarn, but I started with these colors. What I did in my other one was I put the eyelash yarn in between my 2 colors. So it's not a big deal. It still looks great. Just keep that in mind as you start your design of where you want the eyelash yarn to be, or what color you want to end up with, if that is a big deal, which it can be. So super easy to make and quick, 9 rows, and I made 2 of them. There's lots of tails back here because we changed in every row. If you don't want that, you can make it all in one color, but she's beautiful this way, so it's worth the sacrifice. So we have our 2 panels. We're gonna move along to the scarf portion. Again, decide what you want the scarf border to be, and that will be the color you start with. In this case, since I ended with this, I think that my scarf should start and end with this as well. So we will see how that plays out, because I'm trying to keep this project under 3 skeins, and I think that starting with the eyelash yarn will give me more eyelash yarn rows, And I have more of this yarn than I do of this yarn. Remember, this is a specialty yarn and it costs more and it has less. This is 5 ounces. These skeins have 7 ounces. So what I may do is I may just go ahead and start my sequence for the scarf with this beige and keep the order that it is, and then go back at the end and do a single crochet border with one of these 2 colors, because I know that I will have plenty of that and not enough of this. So, you know, it requires a little planning sometimes, okay? So I'm gonna start with the cream, since that was kind of like the sequence here when I started in the center. So I'm going to start with that, and I'm going to continue with our 6.5 millimeter hook that we used for the granny square. And we're going to go ahead and chain 190. For the initial hooded scarf, I did 175 chains. However, I feel like my scarf could be a little bit longer. And from what I remember, I still had yarn left over, especially these guys. So I'm gonna go ahead and make her a little bit longer this time, and maybe have 5 more granny clusters at the end of the row, and I think that will help tremendously. So I'm gonna do that. I'm gonna chain 190. Okay, so that was chain 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and I will see you at the end of 190. So here's my thinking. For the last design, I did chain 190 or 175, like I mentioned. But I started off with chains, and I did notice that it was kind of tight. You know, when your chain is not as loosely, it gives you like a tight, and I will show you what that looks like. But I'm starting to think that I may want to do a half double crochet foundation chain instead. So I'm going to start it off that way, I think. So let me show you how I do that. I think I am going to do it that way. So we're going to attach our yarn to our hook. But you remember that you can do it with just a simple chain. And if you're going to do the chain, you can do 190 or 175, whatever. Let's just stick to what I'm doing here. 190 chains, and then you can start your granny clusters on that 3rd stitch. Anyways, I'm going to start with a chain of 3. I'm going to yarn over and go into the first space and pull up a loop, okay? And I have 3 on my hook. I'm going to yarn over and go through the first one, and that will create my foundation chain, the chain that I'm trying not to make right now. And then I'm going to yarn over, and I like to hold that space with my fingers. That's how it helps me. I'm going to yarn over and go through all 3 to make my half double crochet. And then I'm going to yarn over again, insert my hook into that space that I was holding with my finger there, and yarn over. And again, see that little space there? I like to just put my finger there because I know that's where I'm going to be working. And then yarn over and go through the first chain to make your chain. And then yarn over and go through 3 to make your half double crochet. This is how you make a chain and a half double crochet row at the same time. So we're going to yarn over, insert our hook, pull up a loop, go through the first loop, which is your chain. And then I'm going to hold this space. After you make the chain, I'm going to kind of put my finger in there and then yarn over and go through all 3 to make that half double crochet. And here I'm kind of holding that space because it is hard to see. Yarn over, insert your hook, pull up a loop, yarn over through the 1, and then yarn over through all 3. And continue doing this until you have 190, or alternatively, you can do a chain of 190. Okay, and I will see you at the end of the row. And I just wanted to turn my work to show you guys how this is my chain that I'm the chain that is developing as I do this foundation chain. See the chain, 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 all the way down. So alternatively, when you yarn over, and if you're not holding that space as I was doing, you can just kind of turn your work, and you see the V stitch here. You're just gonna yarn over and go through that V stitch. See that? That's essentially what you're doing. And then you pull up your loop, yarn over, and go through the first chain to make the chain, the next chain, and then yarn over and go through all 3 loops to make your half double crochet. And when you turn your work, you can see that chain right there. Okay, so I will see you again at the end of this round. Okay guys, we made it to the end of our foundation chain with 190. This is where we ended up. We were working this way here. So because we are done here, we're just gonna chain 2 and see how this chain is attached to these stitches here. That's where we're going to work. That's the side we're gonna work on. So we just turn our work up so we're facing those stitches, and we chain 2, and right into that very first stitch here, we're gonna yarn over and insert 2 more double crochets here. 1, 2, and this completes our first granny cluster. We have a chain and 2 double crochets. Okay, now what we're gonna do is we're gonna skip 2, 1, 2, and into the third one we're going to yarn over and make a granny cluster. 1, 2, and 3 double crochets. That's our granny cluster. And then we're going to yarn over and skip 1, skip 2, and into the third one another granny cluster. 1, 2, and 3. Yarn over, skip 1, skip 2, and into the third one another granny cluster. So we're going to continue in this manner all the way to the end of this row, and then I'm going to show you how I switch colors. Okay, so this is what it's looking like, and notice the stretch on my foundation chain here. It's very nice and stretchy for a scarf that's gonna go wrap around your neck. Something that I neglected to do on the other scarf, the original scarf. I will show you my foundation chain here. I'm sure that if you've been crocheting for a while, you notice that if your foundation or your chain is a little too tight, you won't get that stretchiness. Maybe it's hard to see, but I can feel it. There's a little bit of tension here, which also made that row kind of curl up a little bit because there's no give, okay? And I didn't want that this time around. I feel the tension and I didn't like that. You can still do a chain, just do it loosely, very loosely, which I am a tight crocheter, so that is my downfall. But either way, it's gonna turn out great. So I'm gonna keep doing my granny clusters and skipping 2 spaces, and I will see you at the end of this round, okay? All right, guys, we are at the end of our row here, and I have a couple of stitches left. I did a granny cluster here. I'm going to skip 2, and into this last one here, I'm going to make my last granny cluster. 1 and 2. However, I'm just going to do 2 right there, and I don't want this chain here to linger. So I'm going to do my last double crochet right into this chain to keep our row nice and straight. So I'm gonna do that, and that will complete my last cluster here. Do you see that? Okay, so however, I'm going to be changing colors into the what pattern did we use here? From the beige we went to the dark and then the ivory. So let me show you how I attach the new yarn. I'm going to pull this back and not complete that last double crochet, and right before I finish it off, I'm going to cut my tail and I'm going to attach the brown and finish off our double crochet there. I like to bring this forward, and the tail, we just cut both of them forward just to kind of hold them taut there. And we're going to just chain 3, 1, 2, and 3. Okay, and I'm going to go ahead and just give these a quick knot here, gently, not to mess up that stitch there. Okay, and so we have 3, and I'm going to turn my work this way, and I'm going to go ahead and go into the next space here. So leave that standing double crochet there, or chain. What you can do as well is just a standing double crochet, which gives it sometimes an even better edge. So we can just go right into that space there, that stitch, and then just make a single crochet and chain 2. That's your standing double crochet. You can do that as well. Yarn over and go into all the spaces with a granny cluster. From here on out, it'll be a lot easier. You don't have to count or skip anything. So you're just going to make granny clusters. Into each space. You're going to make one here, and here, and here, and here, all the way to the end. And just continue that way, going straight into the next space with 3 double crochets to make our granny clusters. Yarn over, go into the space and make 3 double crochets. So keep doing that till the end of the round. You'll do the same thing for the ivory eyelash yarn. I may or may not show you how to do that, since it is the same exact way that I switched to the brown, depending on how much time I have left. And continue making rows for as many rows as you want the width of your scarf to be. Let me finish this double crochet here. And just to show you my old scarf for reference, or the original design here, I did a total of I think 10 rows. So this is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. And then I did a row of single crochets all around just to match our foundation chain here. So continue doing that for as many rows as you would like your scarf to be, but mine is 10. So I will see you later on after a few rows. Okay guys, we made it to the end of our row. We have 3 stitches left here, 1, 2, and the top of that chain. And we're going to go ahead and yarn over and insert our hook into that chain. Not this one, but the top of the chain there, and make our last double crochet. Sorry about that. Let me move our work back a little bit for you. There we go. So that is how we're going to end the round, and we're going to go ahead and switch colors. I'm going to cut my yarn and attach my eyelash yarn here. And so remember, the way I like to do it is by not finishing that double crochet, just keeping the 2 loops on your hook there, okay? And then bringing over the new yarn to finish our stitch. Bring both of these tails, just kind of hold them here. Okay, pull them tight, and then chain 3. And then we're going to turn our work, and we have a chain right here, and we have a space as well. So we're going to go ahead and into this space make another double crochet and another to complete our first granny cluster. So that's our cluster. I'm going to go back before I forget and just tie off these 2 ends here, and we'll weave those tails later on. A gentle tug, not too tight. And I like to make another one, okay? So here we are. We have our first cluster. And now we're going to yarn over and go into the next space with another granny cluster. This yarn is not difficult at all to work with. I think I mentioned that when I was making the actual granny square. It's very smooth. It glides easily onto my furls hook. So it's no problem at all to work with. So continue in this manner all the way to the end of the row, making your granny clusters, and then continue alternating rows, okay, between the almond, brown, and ivory colors here until you have the desired width of your scarf. As I mentioned, my scarf has 10 solid rows. So I will see you at the end of my 9th row or so, because we may do something a little different since here we started with black and ended with black, and I may end up with this eyelash which I did not start it with. So I may do a single crochet border with the eyelash yarn, not sure, but I will show you that. So I'm going to continue and make my 9 rows, and we'll come back and reassess our project, okay? Okay guys, so here is the finished scarf. I'm going to show you what she looks like. I'm going to lay it out. And as you can see, I did go ahead and created a single crochet border around the foundation chain where that almond color was at, so that both edges of my scarf would have that white or cream eyelash yarn, okay? So this is the scarf here. And so we're just going to fold it in half and lay it out. And I'm going to show you how to place the granny squares and attach them, okay? So here's my granny square. I put both of them with the inside in and the outside out. And I'm just going to take some stitch markers to kind of hold her in place. So I'm going to go ahead and make sure she's nice and straight and even here at the borders before I go ahead and attach those stitch markers. And I'm going to use the first one right into the corner there where it folds in half, and I'm gonna attach the corners of the granny squares as well, just to give it some extra support there. Okay, and stitch markers all across the bottom to the other corner. And up to the side. So this is the entire area that we're going to sew. And this will help us keep our stitches aligned. Okay, so we're going to attach this corner here of the squares to the folded part on the scarf. And we're ready to sew our stitches together in this L shape here. I'm going to do one more stitch marker here and make sure that my stitch count is even from the square to the scarf. Okay. I'll do the same for the other side. Okay. And this is what the opening will be where you put your head into. I'm going to go ahead and turn my work inside out there so that I can create my stitches on the inside of the hooded scarf part. I'm going to use the same yarn that was used on the last row, which is the eyelash yarn. I'm going to go ahead and attach the yarn there at the corner. I'm going to take my yarn needle. I like to use the curved one. And I'm going to measure out the length of the granny square with some yarn here to kind of estimate how much yarn I will need. And then just like a little bit more just in case. Okay. And I'm going to attach that yarn to the needle. And we're going to begin to sew, make a seam here by attaching one stitch from the left or one panel to the other stitch directly across to the other panel. Make sure not to pull the yarn too tightly because we don't want it to look like it's being cinched up, okay? So continue doing this all the way around. So we've made it to the bottom here where we're going to attach directly onto the scarf, and just make sure you sew up both panels together, one to the other, and then attach it directly onto your scarf. Okay, once you do that, you're gonna just turn your work so that all the pieces are flat, and now you're going to continue to attach the bottom of the granny squares to your scarf there. Make sure your stitches are aligned. And it's a little easier if you just turn your work, obviously, if you're crocheting from right to left. So make the adjustments as you need to, and then continue in the same way and just attach one stitch from the square. I'm going to make a little knot there to secure it. But one stitch from the granny square to one stitch of the scarf, and then you can go back and forth whichever direction is easier for you to attach the panels, okay? Keep doing that till the end. Here I'm at the end. I'm taking off the stitch marker and I'm going to secure my yarn onto this corner here. making sure that the corner is sewn down to the scarf. And I'll make sure by doing a little knot here to make sure that it stays in place, okay? Okay, that looks good. We're going to just weave in our tail here. Go up and down a couple of times and then just cut off the excess yarn. And it looks great. I'm gonna cut that off here and turn my work to the other side and do the same for the other side, okay? Okay, so we are done, and we're gonna turn our hooded scarf around. Look at the seam, it looks great here. I'm taking off all the stitch markers. Let me show you what she looks like. And let's turn her inside out. And look at that seam, looks beautiful. And your hooded scarf is completed. You can see the beautiful stitches there, all sewn together nicely. And you are done, guys. This is what the final project looks like. Very easy and beautiful.